This is the Action 5 Pro. Now, I've been using this for the past 30 days, and on the surface level, it really looks a lot like the Action 4.
Same, but different.
If you didn't know any better, you probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference until you look closely. But there's a lot of changes, and a lot of changes that have happened on the inside of this camera that we're going to be talking about in this video. Let's get started. What's good, everybody? Ken here. You're watching OriginaldoBo. Today, I'm going to do my full review of the Action 5 Pro after having had it for the past 30 days. I've actually had it a little bit longer than 30 days, but we'll just call it 30 days for argument's sake. So the Action 5 Pro brings a slew of new features along with performance enhancements to give it that Pro badge. If you're wondering what's difference between the Action 4 and the Action 5 Pro, I'm going to list those differences in this video. I'll also have a section where I pull up the specs. Have them side by side so you can compare the two against one another. With that being said, let's just talk about the overall hardware first, and then we'll jump on to what's different on the inside with the Action 5 Pro. So hardware-wise, not a lot different. It really looks the same on the exterior. Now we have the red color, but we do get a larger front-facing LCD. We also get a larger rear-facing screen as well with better color accuracy. This was something that a lot of action cameras just have screens that are not DCI compliant. This is 100% DCI, which means you're going to get better clarity, better color, especially when filming in hybrid log gamma. We also get a new microphone. The audio quality sounds much better from this camera as well. Pretty much one of the best features of this camera. This thing is also super fun. Love riding this thing. This is the new Roar Mantis. Well, I guess it's not new, but it's the 72 volt version. But beyond that, we still get the same magnetic mounting, same battery slots, same quick buttons. I mean, overall, the layout is so familiar, and I don't think that it needed to change, but just the subtle enhancements to the screens, I think were plenty enough. Now, let's talk about what's different on the inside of this camera. So it's on the inside that this really gets its true Pro badge. We have the first ever 4 nanometer chipset on board. And what that's going to do for you, the end user, is provide better efficiency, better heat dissipation, and better battery consumption. Right now, the Action 5 Pro can film for up to 4 hours. So 4 hours of continuous use out of this camera. And in my testing, I can definitively say that that is 100% true. Now, I'm here in Florida, and Florida gets incredibly hot, and I've been able to film continuously for up to 60 minutes without ever having this fail or overheat, which is saying a lot because a lot of cameras really struggle to do so. I've been able to set this down and let it do continuous time lapses without worry or concern that it would ever overheat. I've been out in Las Vegas filming and walking around in the desert, and it was 110 degrees, and this thing did not overheat. To me, that's pretty impressive. Battery didn't seem to be too far affected by the heat or weather conditions, which was pretty great. Also on board here, we now get a pressure sensor so it can detect altitude and pressure changes. So for divers or climbers, you'll be happy to know that there is information here that can help you make good decisions when filming and using this action camera. We also get a brand new camera. This is a 1/1/3 sensor, and it is good for up to 13 and a half stops of dynamic range. So 13 and a half stops of dynamic range. And of course, I don't have any professional way to validate those claims. Most of the times when there are claims that a camera has 13 or 14 stops of dynamic range, they really come in a little bit less. So I'll leave that test for like Gerald Undone. I know he's paid for that machine that can do those types of tests, but it'll be interesting to see if that actually is really the case. I will say highlight recovery on this is probably better than any action camera that I have ever used. And the shadow recovery to get that detail back is also really great as well. So overall, I will say that the camera, like for dynamic range from what I've seen just straight out of the camera off the SD card, it does amazing. Another nice thing about this camera that they have added to the internal aspect of this is the fact that we now get onboard storage. While you can still use an SD card, you now have 47 gigs of onboard storage. So gone are the days of getting ready to pop this on your quad, put it up in the air and start flying, just to realize you didn't have an SD card. Now with the Action 2, this wasn't an ordeal because it can film internally, but then you would have to transfer that footage over after the fact, which was sometimes pretty slow. But now you can put an SD card in here, and you can also film directly to the internal storage. And at 47 gigs, that's more than enough to have a good day's session captured internally. Of course, it still may not be a bad idea to film externally if you are flying a quad, just because if you have an issue where you can no longer power this up, or you have one of those crazy wrecks, maybe you have a chance to at least recover some of the footage. But again, I'm not going to crash this to find out what the threshold of that actually is. I've already destroyed one Action camera this past week. This is the Action 3. And actually, this should have been this, but I decided to make a last minute change. And when she swung the golf club, well, she made contact with the Action 3. And well, the Action 3 is now completely dead. So I'm just glad it wasn't this one. Otherwise, it would have been a funny way to finish up this review. But overall, let's talk about the image quality of the Action 5 Pro, because that's most important no matter what. All right, so I have filmed a ton, and I'm going to put up a lot of footage here from flying FPV to riding on the RAR Mantis to just really just living and just doing my thing and not really putting a lot of effort and thought into the Action 5 footage or trying to get the best possible capture. And I think that's the best way to use an action camera, is when you have limited thought and limited placement to try to get the best image out of it and just let it do its thing. And that is exactly what I have. So I'm going to go ahead and roll this little montage of footage, and there will be some comparison shots in there between the Action 4 and the Hero 13. I do plan on doing a full video about that later on, but let me know what you think of this footage. Alrighty, so what do you think? I think it does amazing. I think that the standard color profile does an awesome job. I do feel like the auto exposure can be somewhat overly aggressive and favor the highlights a little bit. And it really just crushes the shadows for some reason. And it happens so fast. It's not like a subtle thing. It's almost really, really abrupt, really fast, not very linear. ISO can go all the way up to 12,800. So you can set your limits to 100 to 12,000, 100 to 6,400, 100 to 3,200, and then you can go as low as 100 to 800. So when I am outside, I am setting my limits to 100 to 800. And if I'm filming in D-Log-M, I am actually underexposing by just a little bit. Because I find that D-Log-M has so much data recovery, underexposing by just a half a stop is perfect to make sure that none of my highlights are clipped and I'm able to bring all that data back effortlessly, which I really, really love. So as far as frame rates go and resolutions, this camera is capable of filming up to 4K 120 frames per second, 4K 100, 4K 60, 4K 50, 4K 30, and 4K 24. Of course, you also have 2.7K and 1080p, and in those lower resolutions, you can get higher frame rates as well, such as 240 frames per second. I personally have only ever found myself filming at like 4K 30, 4K 60. I really don't need the 4K 120 really ever unless I'm doing something like on a drift course or something like that. Then I would use those higher frame rates. It is a bit of a bummer that they did not include 5.7K here when Hero does have it. The Hero 13 does have 5.7K. But then the other way to look at that is that how long can you really film at 5.7K on the Hero cameras anyhow? Ever since they've introduced that high of a resolution, it's been nothing but problems and overheating concerns for the Hero line. So because of that, I never found myself even using that resolution. So I still feel that 4K is plenty enough for an action camera. Things that I've always looked for when it comes to an action camera is the color accuracy and the dynamic range, which I think that this checks all the boxes. About 2 years ago, I ended up switching to using Actions as my full-time action camera. I went away from GoPro after the Hero 11 debacle, and I haven't looked back because I just had so many problems, so many issues. And with the introduction of GyroFlow, I really didn't need GoPro anymore. So to be able to get that smooth, simple cinematic footage, I just drop this footage into GyroFlow and I'm gonna get a very, very similar result and sometimes even better, which is pretty nice. And yes, you can use GyroFlow with this. You can use it in 4:3 or 16:9, so long as you're filming in the wide mode and you turn off Rocksteady. Rocksteady and Rocksteady Plus do make a return here and they are just as great as they ever were. We're getting closer and closer to never needing GyroFlow or additional post stabilization, as the onboard stabilization does an amazing job. Now there is one new feature on this, which is a tracking feature that they added. This tracking feature can crop you down into a 9:16 and it's able to track a subject or face, which is fantastic if you like filming TikToks or social media content. You'll find that very useful. And then as far as the low light aspect of this goes, there is the super night mode. Now I did test this when I was at Disney and I may have screwed this up ever so slightly by not turning off image stabilization. Electronic image stabilization will never be good in low light. It will always have these weird sort of like, I don't know, distortions and things that can tend to happen. So my recommendation is if you're going to film in the super night mode, turn off your image stabilization. Yes, your footage will not be as stable, but if you're filming with the widest lens profile in the night mode, you'll at least have a sort of a similar look, and maybe you can at least walk a little bit more carefully, which will make the image look a little bit better. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the footage coming straight out of the Action, and it does have pretty good low light for an action camera. And then for the hardest thing that I've had to do during the testing of this product is to conceal this new accessory that they've launched, which is this handle that you can use with your Action 5 Pro, which I really love this. And another nice thing about this handle is it also extends your battery life because it contains a battery where you can charge. Obviously, you're not going to want to get this wet because it is not a weather sealed fit. Does double as a tripod. It does have a quarter 20 in the bottom here. You can access all of your quick settings along with being able to start, stop recording. I have used this, which is fantastic for vlogging. I know GoPro recently released one of these as well, but I feel like this is just a little bit simpler, smaller, and just easier to use. It also charges relatively fast, and you can charge it while it's charging the Action 5 Pro by just plugging into the back. It also has a mic jack as well if you want to connect a non-DJI mic directly to this, which is pretty fantastic. But overall, this has been my sort of on-the-go filming kit for the past week or so. As I've filmed most of my Neo videos, this was the camera that I was using for a lot of my A-roll shots. To the backside, and it's magnetic, so it's going to connect pretty easily. And then from there, you have a cable which connects to any device. It's a USB-C cable. Obviously, the RC2 Pro does not have HDMI out, so this makes this a really convenient option. Now, of course, you could just use the DJI goggles RC, and it was hard to try to conceal this so it wasn't being shown, but it's been really fantastic. I also filmed that video where I used those smart glasses with this as well. A lot of my A-roll shots outside as I was flying were filmed with this, and the shots facing into the glasses themselves were filmed with this in the standard color profile. Another thing to mention, this does have a 40 megapixel sensor, so when you are taking your photos with this, it is pretty damn detailed. Overall, I think the Action 5 Pro is probably the best action camera upgrade of this season so far. Now, I will be testing it directly against the Hero 13 Black. I can tell you definitively, I feel like the image quality on the Action 5 Pro is a bit better than the Hero 13. While the Hero 13 has a lot better accessories, it's going to be an interesting comparison. Obviously, GoPro loyalists will always love GoPro, and DJI loyalists will always love DJI. But that will be for another video, and it will be dropping pretty damn soon. So if you're interested in that, be sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that content when I do release that. But overall, very, very happy with the Action 5 Pro. It's definitely going to be in my bag. And like I said, I've used it quite a bit, and I've also used it on a handful of professional shoots over the course of this past month. So there you go. If you enjoyed this video and you want to know more information about the Action 5 Pro, there will be links in the description below. And if you want to use this with your DJI Avata, the easiest way to do that is with our bad idea mount. That is how I was able to capture all of that footage with the FPV drones. It was filmed on the DJI Avata, mounted to our bad idea mount. Links for my Etsy store is in the description below. And as always, I will see you in the next video. Stay original.
I heard they checking for me, no one checking on me, so I had to go.
All right, so now I'm gonna test the D-Log M out on the Action 5 Pro. I'm just gonna make sure everything is seated on here correctly. It is, and we're gonna put it up in the air and let's see what it does. All right, so that was not fun. I'm happy to see and report the camera stayed on the bike. That's a good thing. Nothing's broken on the Avata, at least from what I can see. It took me 5 minutes to get down from that freaking hill.